Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Alexa Bartell? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. This case takes place in Jefferson County, Colorado, which is just west of Denver. On April 19, 2023, 20-year-old Alexa Bartell was driving her Chevrolet Spark northbound on Indiana Street. She was on the phone with a friend of hers. According to this friend, at around 10:45 p.m., Alexa abruptly stopped talking. So the friend was speaking to her, and then all of a sudden, nothing. At 11:05 p.m., when the friend was able to leave work, she used the Find My iPhone app to locate Alexa. The app indicated that the phone was stationary in a field on the east side of Indiana Street, just south of State Highway 128. The friend drove to this location and found Alexa in the driver's seat of the Chevrolet Spark, not moving. The friend called Alexa's mother and then called 911. When the police arrived, they found Alexa unresponsive. Blood was on the car door and on her lap. She was pronounced dead after medical personnel arrived on the scene. The police noticed that there was a hole in the windshield and the rear window of the vehicle was blown out. They determined that a motor vehicle collision had not occurred. Rather, an object penetrated the windshield and struck Alexa in the head, killing her. Investigators found a landscaping rock on the side of the road. It had blood on it. They assumed that this was the projectile that killed Alexa. As the investigation into Alexa's death continued, the police learned about two other incidents that happened that same day. At about 10:40 p.m., two vehicles were struck by rocks in separate incidents not far from where Alexa had been found. The police interviewed both drivers from the incidents, who they referred to as Driver 1 and Driver 2. Driver 1 was operating a Subaru. He was turning onto Indiana Street when he saw a light-colored SUV or pickup truck approach his vehicle. A large rock was launched from this vehicle, which penetrated his windshield and struck him in the shoulder. He told the police that he believed the rock was thrown from the bed of the pickup truck or from a sunroof. Driver 2 had been operating a vehicle behind Driver 1. He saw the rock strike Driver 1's Subaru and then saw and felt an object hit the front of his vehicle. Driver 2 found a rock on the road that he believed was the projectile. As the investigation continued, the police became aware of 4 additional rock-throwing attacks, bringing the total number of attacks to 7. The drivers involved in these 4 attacks were referred to as Driver 3, 4, 5, and 6. Driver 3 was driving westbound on West 100th Avenue when he saw someone in a vehicle driving eastbound throw a rock at his car. The rock shattered his windshield, and he sustained minor injuries. This attack happened around 10 p.m., so about 45 minutes before Alexa was attacked. Driver 4 was southbound on Highway 93 when a rock struck her windshield, causing minor injuries to her face. She did not see any other vehicles. Driver 5 was also driving southbound on Highway 93 when he was attacked. His driver's side windows and his rear window were broken. He did not see any other vehicles. This attack occurred at about 10:15 p.m. Driver 6 was southbound on Highway 93 behind Driver 5. His windshield was cracked by an object after a truck heading northbound passed him. It was reasonable to believe that all 7 attacks were connected to one another. In order to identify a suspect or suspects, the police requested cell phone data from all the cell phone carriers in the area. They were looking for all the phones that were in the vicinity of 4 cell towers. They were able to narrow down the list of phones to 11. One of these 11 phones was moving in the area at the same time as the rock-throwing attacks. This particular phone also passed by the area where Alexa's body was found. The police were able to identify this phone as belonging to a local man named Joseph Koenig. The police reviewed surveillance video and found that when Driver 1 and Driver 2 were attacked, only one other vehicle was in the area. It appeared to be a 2014 to 2016 Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck based on the configuration of the taillights. On April 25, 6 days after the murder, investigators received a tip from a man who talked about a coworker who had discussed rock-throwing incidents. The police tracked down this coworker, who they referred to as Witness 1. He told them that Joseph Koenig had contacted him on April 19 at around 6:30 p.m., asking if he wanted to hang out. Joseph arrived at his house along with 2 other people, Mitch and Zach. Later, Mitch was identified as Nicholas Carroll Chick and Zach as Zachary Quack. All 4 men drove around in a black Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck. They ended up in a Walmart parking lot. Witness 1 then went into the store to use the restroom. When he returned, the other 3 men were loading rocks into the back seat of the pickup truck. He told the trio to take him home, which they did. The police were able to locate the Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck. It was parked at the residence of Nicholas. He was arrested and spoke to the police. Nicholas talked about how he, Joseph, and Zachary drove around in the pickup truck on April 19. Initially, he claimed that only Zachary had thrown rocks, but later admitted that all 3 of them had thrown rocks. Nicholas claimed that Zachary was the one who threw the rock that struck Alexa's vehicle. The police arrested Joseph and Zachary. Joseph refused to talk to the police, but Zachary agreed to be interviewed. He admitted to collecting and throwing rocks, but said that Nicholas was the one who killed Alexa. So it's clear that somebody was lying. The 3 suspects, Joseph, Nicholas, and Zachary, were charged with a number of offenses, including 1 count of first-degree murder, extreme indifference, 6 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 3 counts of second-degree assault, and 3 counts of attempted second-degree assault. At the time making this video, the men maintained the presumption of innocence. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. All 3 men charged in the attacks were 18-year-old high school seniors. According to Nicholas, he and Joseph had thrown objects at vehicles on at least 10 other occasions since February of that year. They threw rocks and statues. It would appear that this behavior wasn't new on April 19. The man who told the police about the men collecting the rocks, Witness 1, said that Joseph had a history of destructive behavior and enjoyed causing chaos. After striking Alexa's vehicle with a rock, the 3 men noticed that her vehicle drifted off the road. They turned the truck around so that Zachary could take a photograph. Zachary claimed that he did this because he thought the other 2 would want it as a memento. Nicholas claimed that he felt a hint of guilt after the alleged murder. Item number 2. After the fatal encounter, the trio returned home and agreed never to speak of the incident. They talked about how they were now blood brothers. The next day, they met to get their stories straight. They wanted to deny responsibility. When interviewed by the police, Nicholas and Zachary accused each other of throwing the rock that killed Alexa. Somehow I'm not surprised that their commitment to each other as blood brothers did not withstand even one encounter with law enforcement. If they were looking for a term involving blood, cold-blooded killers would have been more appropriate. It appears as though making an individual attempt to escape responsibility is now what the 3 men have in common. That is truly what binds them together. Item number 3. In the state of Colorado, first-degree murder, extreme indifference, is a type of murder that does not involve intent to cause the victim's death. Rather, it involves an attitude of universal malice manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life generally. Technically, based on the evidence available, these men probably did commit first-degree murder, but I would be surprised if they are ultimately convicted of that crime. In 2017, there was a case in Michigan where 5 teenagers murdered a 32-year-old man who was the passenger in a van on Interstate 75. The teenagers threw a 6-pound rock off an overpass, which struck the van's windshield and killed the man. 4 of the teenagers were juveniles. They were sentenced to probation after pleading guilty to manslaughter. The one adult perpetrator pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 3 to 20 years in prison. He was released in 39 months. There's something about throwing rocks at vehicles that doesn't seem nearly as intentional or lethal as using something like a firearm, a knife, or poison. Rock throwing is often thought of as a form of mischief, like setting a small fire or deliberately creating a tripping hazard. The behavior can be deadly and should be avoided, but the person engaging in the behavior did not necessarily set out to kill someone. This brings me to item number 4. What would be an appropriate punishment in this case, assuming that these 3 young men are actually guilty? Are these men hopeless killers who have no chance of rehabilitation, or was the victim's death the result of a prank gone bad? As I mentioned, there is a precedent for treating this type of crime with a lot of leniency, but I'm not sure that's appropriate in this case. If these men simply wanted to have fun striking vehicles with rocks, they could have thrown pebbles. That would still be illegal and a bad idea, but it would probably not be lethal. Instead, they selected massive landscaping rocks as their projectiles. The rock that struck the Chevrolet Spark, driven by Alexa Bartell, had a tremendous amount of momentum. The rock penetrated the windshield, struck the victim in the head, killing her, and then exited out of the rear window. The teenagers returned to the scene of the homicide not to render aid, but to take a photograph. Their behavior is consistent with sadism. In addition, according to Nicholas, he and Joseph made a habit out of throwing rocks at vehicles. This was not their first time. These young men should have known that they could kill someone. It really did seem like they were asking for a fatality. They were engaging in an organized and deliberate effort, like they wanted the excitement of hurting an innocent person. Over the years of looking at many cases, I've noticed that society tends to view any crime involving a vehicle as less intentional and serious than the same crime committed without a vehicle. One example is driving under the influence, a crime that should be treated much more seriously than it is. If an intoxicated person kills somebody with a baseball bat, that's always treated as serious. If a person is intoxicated and they kill somebody with a car, it's not considered as serious. It doesn't make any sense because only the weapon was different. This leniency problem comes from the tradition of not prosecuting people for motor vehicle collisions. Society does not want to treat unintentional behavior as criminal. I agree that the majority of motor vehicle collisions do not involve a serious crime. However, this case was not about collisions. This was not a story of somebody whose foot slipped off the brake as they approached a stop sign. These young men wanted to cause mayhem and destruction. A pickup truck just happened to be one tool they were using. If they were on top of a skyscraper and dropped those rocks on people's heads, they would not be offered any type of generous plea bargain. That hasn't happened in this case, but I predict that it could. I don't think what they allegedly did here is any different from that type of scenario. In my opinion, the state of Colorado should ensure these young men serve at least 30 years in prison. It's ironic that the men allegedly killed somebody with a rock, yet as far as their punishment, there may be a general reluctance for the state to cast the first stone. Moving to my last item, number 5. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, in my opinion. These 3 young men had various undesirable characteristics like impulsivity, sadism, and sensation-seeking. They did not appear to have empathy or remorse. Consistent with these traits, they engaged in a dangerous activity that simultaneously satisfied both the excitement-seeking and the sadistic tendencies. Individually, they may not have engaged in this activity, but there was a diffusion of responsibility by functioning in a group. The actions of the other people made each person feel as though they were untouchable, like each of them felt as though what they were doing was normal and acceptable because other people were doing it too. They helped each other to unlock their worst characteristics. When they saw the vehicle driven by Alexa Bartell, they did not care who was in it. She was completely innocent. She had no reason to believe that anyone would want to kill her. But to these men, she was just an object, a person whose life could be sacrificed for entertainment value. They killed her and returned to view their handiwork. Afterward, they focused on how they could escape responsibility. The same maladaptive traits that led to the alleged crime led them to getting caught. They had the resolve to kill an innocent person. Now it's incumbent upon the state to demonstrate the resolve to punish them. Those are my thoughts on the case of Alexa Bartell. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.